All right, so we're diving into Gothic Park this time.
Yeah, this excerpt you sent over, really fascinating stuff.
It really makes you wonder, with all these hyper-realistic virtual experiences popping up, how can we even be sure what's real anymore?
It's a question that's explored right from the get-go in the story.
And the setting, 19th century London, with a Gothic twist. I mean, talk about immersive.
Blending historical intrigue with the possibilities of VR, it's a potent mix.
I was blown away by how detailed the author made the whole Gothic Park experience.
Oh, absolutely.
Our main character, Jeremy, he's a computer engineering student, and he gets dropped right into this meticulously crafted digital version of Victorian London.
It's not just some basic VR setup either.
Right. Cobblestone streets, eerie gaslights, even these spectral horses you can see right through.
It's those little touches that really make the whole perception versus reality theme hit home.
Totally, like with the rumpus healing touch.
Ah, yes, that's a great example.
It's part of his costume in the game, supposed to heal wounds, but obviously doesn't work in the real world.
Right, because it can't.
And then he stumbles on that scene with the woman and the knife.
That's where the story takes a turn.
For sure. The author doesn't hold back on the realism either, the way he describes it.
It's chilling.
Like that whole thing about the knife being really stuck in her back.
It's like the line between the game and reality starts to fray.
And not just for Jeremy, but for us as readers, too.
You get that feeling of unease, like, wait a minute, what's actually going on here?
And then everyone he tries to tell, the virtual Bobby, the other park guests, they just brush him off.
Assuming it's all part of the act, which just adds to the whole sense of disbelief.
Totally. Like, how can nobody else see what's happening?
It really highlights how easily our assumptions, especially about technology, can shape our perception of what's real.
It's like a virtual blind spot, hiding the truth in plain sight.
And then you have those two shady characters dressed as chimney sweeps.
Oh, man. Don't even get me started on those two.
Carrying the dead woman's body away. It's such a bizarre contrast.
Like, here's this gruesome reality clashing with this carefully constructed illusion of fun and games.
This is jarring.
And then it just gets crazier. Jeremy finds that secret door behind the virtual pub.
Talk about being in the right place at the wrong time.
Right. And he ends up in the control room for the whole park.
It's a pivotal moment in the story.
It's like he steps behind the curtain right into the mechanics of this whole virtual world.
He goes from participant to potential puppet master in the blink of an eye.
And he doesn't waste any time either. Starts tinkering with the control panel, trying to figure things out.
And then he creates Stella the Ghost.
Oh, man, that whole thing was brilliant.
It's a fascinating use of the park's technology against itself.
Like turning the illusion on its head to expose the truth.
But it also brings up some complex ethical questions.
How so?
Well, here you have Jeremy trying to right a wrong.
Yeah.
But he's doing it by manipulating the experiences of others, even if they're virtual characters.
It's a slippery slope for sure.
It is, and the story doesn't shy away from those murky waters.
On one hand, he's trying to expose a crime, but on the other hand, he's messing with the very fabric of this digital world.
And it makes you wonder, where does our responsibility lie in a situation like that?
Especially as these lines between real and virtual get blurrier and blurrier.
It's a question without easy answers.
That's for sure.
Yeah, it's wild, the whole control room.
Like, it becomes this weird mini version of the park itself, you know?
Yeah.
You've got Jeremy dealing with an actual murder.
Right there in the middle of all this high-tech wizardry.
And everyone else is off having a blast, none the wiser.
Oblivious, yeah.
Like, completely. Flirting with virtual vampires, that kind of thing.
It's such a stark juxtaposition, the different realities playing out.
It really makes you think about how our choices shape our experiences, even in these digital spaces.
Exactly. It's not just a passive thing. We're actively creating our own little bubbles of reality.
Like, this story mentions how some guests choose to be the bad guys.
Oh yeah, that always gets me thinking.
What makes someone want to do that, even in a virtual world?
It's like they feel emboldened to explore those darker impulses, you know?
Because there's that sense of anonymity, no real consequences.
Right, which is a whole other can of worms.
Definitely gives you pause.
It does.
But so, back to Jeremy, stuck in this control room.
He's got Stella causing a distraction, but now what?
It's like he's in one of those escape rooms.
Except the stakes are way higher.
Right. It's not just a game anymore.
And he's acutely aware of his own vulnerability.
Exactly. He can't just waltz out of there.
And then, just as he's figuring out his next move,
he gets that video call from park security.
Oh man, talk about bad timing.
Right. And they're more worried about him being in a restricted area
than about the murder he's trying to report.
It's almost comical how bureaucracy works even in a place like that.
So true, though.
Thankfully, Jeremy's a smart cookie.
He is quick on his feet.
He manages to get some key info out of them during the call.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
He figures out that the control room's map shows everyone's location in real time.
So he can track the killers.
Exactly. And not just that, he realizes he can use the console to send those virtual bobbies after them.
Wow, talk about turning the table.
It's like he suddenly becomes this puppet master controlling the whole park.
And here come the ethical questions again.
Right. Like how far is too far?
It's a gray area, for sure.
But you can't help but root for him a little bit.
I know, it's such a good story.
And the way the author builds the suspense is masterful.
You're on the edge of your seat the whole time.
Totally. Like we're in on the plan, but those other characters are clueless.
It's like watching a train wreck in slow motion, but you can't look away.
And those virtual bobbies closing in, guided by Jeremy.
It's such a clever use of the park's own setting and rules.
I know, right? It's like he's using their own game against them.
Which is kind of poetic when you think about it.
And a little bit terrifying.
Maybe just a tad.
It's like he's hijacked this whole virtual world and turned it into his own personal crime drama.
Yeah, totally. And the way he uses those virtual bobbies.
It's pretty ingenious, right? Like something out of a heist movie, only with a ghost instead of a getaway car.
And it's all made possible because of Jeremy's understanding of the technology, his computer skills.
Right. It's not just brute force. He's outsmarting them at their own game.
Precisely. He's not just reacting anymore. He's actively shaping the narrative, using their systems against them.
But it's still a huge gamble, you know? Like, at one point, the killers, they actually glance towards the control room.
Oh, I remember that part.
Like, they sense something's off, you know?
It's subtle, but it really adds to the tension.
Oh, absolutely. You're on the edge of your seat, wondering if they'll figure it out, if Jeremy's whole plan will unravel.
And he's got Stella the ghost confronting them in the pub, too.
Right, like using the park's own fantasy setting against them.
It's brilliant, really, turning the tools of illusion into weapons of truth.
Talk about a masterstroke. It's like he's playing 4D chess while they're stuck in checkers.
And it's a turning point for the other guests, too. Well, at first, they're just amused, right? They think it's all part of the show.
But then, bam! Reality hits.
That carefully constructed illusion, the one the park creators worked so hard to build, it shatters.
And they're forced to confront the very real danger lurking beneath the surface.
It's a powerful moment.
So what happens next? Do the killers get away?
Oh no, Jeremy, he's got one more trick up his sleeve.
Tell me.
Just when it seems like they might slip away, he uses the control room's microphone, announces their identities to the real bobbies, the actual authorities who finally arrived.
Oh, wow.
It's like this wave of relief washes over you, you know? Justice prevails.
Talk about a satisfying ending.
But it's also a sobering reminder of the risks Jeremy took, how easily things could have gone wrong.
He could have ended up another victim, easily.
Exactly. The story doesn't shy away from that, from the very real danger he faced.
Which makes his courage even more impressive.
It does, it really does.
But it makes you wonder, right? Would we be so brave?
If we were in his shoes...
Yeah, like would we have the same moral compass, the same drive to do the right thing?
That's the question the story leaves us with, isn't it?
And it's a question worth pondering, especially with technology advancing so rapidly.
I think so too. Gothic Park isn't just a thrilling story, it's a cautionary tale. A reminder to think critically about the worlds we create, both virtual and real.
And the choices we make within them.
Exactly. It's a conversation starter. A reminder to stay vigilant, to never take our grip on reality for granted.
Well said. It's been a fascinating deep dive into Gothic Park, exploring its themes of perception, technology, and the choices we make when the lines blur.
Absolutely. A thought-provoking story with plenty to unpack.
Until next time, keep those minds sharp, and remember, sometimes the most captivating adventures force us to question the very nature of what's real.